metaphysically, it is kind of we've chosen this path and it's all our choice. And yet, in the day to day, there does seem to be, I wish there was a better way to say this, but seem to be forces which are sort of vying for our attention and sort of, and I mean, there is probably a worthy question in there in terms of how much is that our choice as well versus how much are external influences actually, harvesting our attention as we're going through. And what are some of these vices and forces that are doing that to us and what are their agendas?
Oh, okay. That's a that's a big question, but I would say that the collective consciousness is always working in order to bring about its own evolution, right? And within the collective consciousness, there will be aspects of the consciousness that are, I'll just be very general, that are going to be the bad guys, for lack of a better term, that are going to produce what I call evolutionary tension by pressing down. So the same way a diamond is formed, right? How is a diamond formed? Immense pressure on carbon over billions of years, and all of a sudden there's a diamond, right? Okay, so the I am and evolution kind of works in the same way. For us to pull back our Clark Kent outfit and to realize that we have a Superman costume. So if you see me do this, that's what I'm doing. So we give ourselves these challenges to call upon more of ourselves in order to evolve. So we actually, I know people don't want to hear this, but I don't really care. We call in these forces. We call in the bad guys, and all of us have a choice as to what role we want to play because the name of the game is evolution. And so even the dark serves the light, but we have to be aware of how this game is played. And I think for the most part, humanity doesn't really understand how this game is played. And they have an idea about how this game is played. But when you start to understand some of the eternal immutable laws of the universe, like the law of freedom, or like the law of love, or like the law of perfection, and these are things that are not talked about, these are things that are not understood. These are the things that I teach in class. When we start to understand how these things really work, we actually start to understand that this game was set up for us to master ourselves through playing this game. And self mastery is not a moving target that lies outside the self. So when our attention is upon something outside of ourself, we are distracting ourselves instead of having our attention on and within the I am itself. And when your attention is on and within the I am itself, that's what grows. And that's the key. So part of the game that's played here is to always be vying for your attention. So your energy is going outward and it's not focused on yourself. You're focused on things that you don't want in your reality. You're focused on preventing things that you don't want instead of focusing on putting all your attention, which is energy, on what it is that you want to grow. So as our attention gets harvested, we're kind of like a container, which is why when we're watching a scary movie, we get scared. It's like, well, how the hell is that possible? It's going on a screen or a TV. Why? Why? Because I'm watching something, I'm getting scared. It's because attention is energy. And what you put your attention on, you connect with energetically. And we are like a container. So whatever we're connected with, we actually experience. We then hold that frequency and emanate it, and then actually build and have the experience of what our attention is upon. And this is part of how reality is created. So the name of the game is vying for attention. Attention is the new oil because things are built through attention. And so if they can harvest people's attentions and our attention is on and we hold that frequency, we actually build that reality. And this is how dystopian timelines are actually built. These so-called prophecies and all this kind of stuff, they're user manuals for how to bring about these dystopian timelines because we're putting our attention on it, holding that frequency, emanating it, and then building it. So the new book, The Law of Attention, actually gives us the knowledge about how this actually works and how to harness our awareness, attention, and single pointedness of focus in order to create the reality that we truly desire and not to have our attention on something that we don't desire and then ultimately give that energy and power and grow that despite the fact that that's not what we desire to experience for ourselves.
I want to know more about like brings the viewer into some context around awareness, attention, and single pointed focusedness. But before we do that, can you, and maybe this segues into it, what are some telltale signs that someone's attention is hijacked?
Okay, the first one would be how long can you go without thinking? Right? Okay. For most people, not everybody, for most people, it's probably only a couple of seconds. Probably, right? and then some longer, whatever. Okay. But if you can't go without thinking, if you don't have control over yourself, then what does? Then who does? What that means is that your attention has been harvested and you have been programmed. If you can't control yourself, what is controlling you? If you can't have your mind clear and be present, then who's in control? You have been harvested. That's what that means. It means you're running programs. We are so distracted and so out of control because we are completely and utterly controlled. And that's what happens when your attention is on something long enough. You end up identifying with it and it seeps into your subconscious mind. And then with your subtle body and even parts of the gross physical body, it starts to become embedded within that. And then you carry that and then you run it like a program. So the best way to know if your attention has been harvested, how long can you stay present? How long can you go without thinking? And if it's not very long, then there's some work to do.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Thank you for that. It actually couldn't help but reflect on, I don't know, this is not super pertinent to this conversation, or maybe it is, but like the AI thing that's going on at the moment as well. People are just like chatting away to AI, and it's like it's a lot of thinking. It's just a lot of neural, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. And I mean, it just brought to light just the yeah, what we're actually participating in there in terms of like entrenching ourselves further into the EMI versus giving us space for the IM to emerge.
You got it. The AI is just adding layer upon layer upon layer of the matrix itself. And if we start to understand that, we'll start to view and work with AI very differently. But what we're doing is just adding layers to the illusion of the matrix itself.
So, how come such a prevailing force for adding, um, entrenching in sort of the matrix, let's put it that way, is presenting itself now when we are actually on the ascending arc, back through Dwapara into the ascension, that you were referring to before? Because that seems like quite an entrenching tool.
It is, yeah, you are correct. So I would say that the more that we're on the upswing, so to speak, right, the more the evolutionary tension is put upon us. But that's really serving us to do this, to call upon more of ourself. And that's really it, Emmerich. So evolution is that. Evolution is calling upon more of the self. We always equate it to like technology, and it can be, but it's not. It's about calling upon more of yourself, and as you call upon more of yourself, you'll be able to develop things like technologies. But it's the pressure that is key, right? Again, how is a diamond formed? Immense pressure that doesn't let up, right? So we get the best of the evolutionary tension, if you will, when we're on the most upswing, because that's when it counts the most. That's when it counts the most. That's actually when we get the most out of it. I know that sounds backwards, but that's when we get the most out of it because when something is being pressed upon you, let's say that's holding back your business or holding something back, you will work harder to figure out a way to make it happen. That is exactly what you'll do, right? You won't be like, oh, well, it's not meant. Oh, unless you're really delusional and so super spiritual that you think it has nothing to do with focus and effort or self-control and self-discipline. Well, that's a whole nother conversation. But you know that if things are not working out for you, let's I'm just using business wise, you're gonna grind and you're gonna figure out a way to make it happen. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. As this is happening to us, we are gonna have to do this. And that is the evolution of consciousness. And that's why it works. It's symbiotic. You don't have this. Does Superman ever do this if there isn't a problem to solve? Right? He'll sit back in his suit, right, and stare at Lois Lane. No, it's not so bad, right? But anyway, but this doesn't happen unless there's an issue. And so we need the evolutionary tension. We need the bad guys. And this is what it means that the darkness always serves the light. I mean, it's a lot more to it than that. But the evolutionary tension is important, especially as this. It's actually going to help us continue to pull back the suit and realize that the I am is within all of us, and that is the fractal of God, and nothing is going to stop that. no matter what is done.
Hey there, Inspired Evolutionary. If you absolutely loved this, well, then here's a full conversation with this guest on the Inspired Evolution podcast. Check it out now.